Hollywood? Was it a happy time for you, or
yes, it is. It's a very happy time. I'm happy to be back. As I said, it's my hometown.
Yes.
Well, you're a happy girl now.
When you go to London?
Well, Marilyn,
yes, I'm much happier, though. I'm very pleased.
Is it true that you submitted a list of directors that you would work with? We only know the rumors we hear, you know.
I would rather say that I have director approval, and that is true.
This you think is important?
Yes, it is. Very important to me.
For over 6 decades, the enduring fame of Marilyn Monroe has been intertwined with the mystery of her death. But it's her vibrant life that truly captivated the world. Her luminous presence on screen, coupled with a turbulent personal life that often eclipsed her considerable talent as an actress, fueled a fascination that lingered beyond her tragic end. Since the discovery of Monroe, then just 36, in her Brentwood home on August 5, 1962, her story has been a blend of enigma and sorrow. Was her death simply a tragic incident, or something more? The life of the woman originally named Norma Jeane Mortenson has been exhaustively explored, from a childhood marked by instability and the absence of a father, to her deep yearnings for motherhood, to high-profile romances that have sparked endless speculation. Her life, as much as her death, remains a subject of intense scrutiny and intrigue. She was a distinguished American actress and model, celebrated for her roles as the archetypal blonde bombshell in comedy films, rising to become a leading sex symbol of the 1950s and early 1960s, symbolizing the sexual liberation of her era. Her career spanned a decade as a leading actress, with her films amassing a remarkable $200 million in revenue by 1962, an amount equating to approximately $2 billion today. Decades after her passing, Monroe's influence endures, solidifying her status as an enduring icon in pop culture. Join us as we step back in time to unravel the enigma of Marilyn Monroe's life. A journey through her rise to stardom, her profound impact on Hollywood, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding her untimely death. Marilyn Monroe, originally named Norma Jeane Mortenson, entered the world on June 1, 1926, at Los Angeles General Hospital in California. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, born Monroe in 1902, came from a modest Midwestern family that had relocated to California in the early 20th century. Her mother experienced a turbulent early life. At just 15, she married John Newton Baker, a man 9 years her senior, and known for his abusive behavior. Together, they had 2 children, Robert and Bernice. In 1923, Gladys filed for divorce and gained custody of her children. But in a distressing turn of events, Baker abducted Robert and Bernice and took them to Kentucky, his home state. DNA testing indicated that Monroe's father was Charles Stanley Gifford, a co-worker of Gladys, with whom she had an affair in 1925. Monroe also had 2 other half-siblings from Gifford's marriage with his first wife, a sister, Doris Elizabeth, and a brother, Charles Stanley Jr. Despite Gladys being unprepared both mentally and financially for motherhood, Marilyn Monroe's early years were relatively stable and content. Monroe was placed in the care of evangelical Christian foster parents, Albert and Ida Belender, in the rural town of Hawthorne. Gladys herself lived there for about 6 months before work obligations necessitated her return to the city. However, she maintained a connection with her daughter, visiting her on weekends. In the summer of 1933, Gladys, with the help of a loan, purchased a small house in Hollywood and moved in with the 7-year-old Marilyn. However, they weren't alone in the house. It was also home to their lodgers, actors George and Maude Atkinson, and their daughter, Nellie, creating a unique, albeit crowded, family environment for Monroe. In January 1934, Gladys experienced a mental breakdown and was subsequently diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Following a period in a rest home, she was admitted to the Metropolitan State Hospital. This marked the beginning of a long and difficult journey for Gladys, who spent much of her remaining years in and out of various hospitals, leading to minimal contact with Monroe thereafter. As a result of these circumstances, Monroe became a ward of the state. During this period, Grace Goddard, a friend of her mother's, stepped in to oversee both Monroe and her mother's affairs, providing a semblance of stability in young Marilyn's life during a time of profound uncertainty. In the 4 years following her mother's hospitalization, Marilyn Monroe experienced frequent changes in her living arrangements. Initially, she stayed with the Atkinsons for 16 months, where she is said to have suffered sexual abuse by a caretaker. This traumatic experience contributed to her becoming increasingly shy and withdrawn, even developing a stutter. During the summer of 1935, Monroe briefly lived with Grace Goddard, her husband Irwin "Doc" Goddard, and a few other families. By September 1935, Grace placed her in the Los Angeles orphans' home Holly Grove. Although regarded as a model institution and viewed positively by others, Monroe felt a deep sense of abandonment there. The staff, believing she would be happier in a family environment, encouraged Grace to become her legal guardian in 1936. However, Monroe didn't leave the orphanage until the following summer of 1937. Her second stay with the Goddards was short-lived, as Doc Goddard molested her. Following this, Monroe moved several times, living briefly with various relatives and acquaintances of Grace in Los Angeles and Compton. This period was marked by instability and uncertainty, deeply affecting Monroe's early life. The desire to become an actress for Marilyn Monroe was born out of her challenging childhood. She once mentioned how the grim reality of her surroundings made her yearn for something different. Discovering acting opened up a new world for her, one she eagerly wanted to be a part of. Her foster families often sent her to the movies, providing an escape from her daily life. There, sitting alone in the vastness of the theater, she found solace and joy in the stories unfolding on the big screen. This experience was a beacon of hope and inspiration, fueling her dream to step into the world of acting. In September 1938, Marilyn Monroe's living situation stabilized when she moved in with Grace's aunt, Anna Lower, in Sawtell, a West Side district. During this time, Monroe attended Emerson Junior High School and regularly participated in Christian Science services with Lower. She showed a particular talent in writing, contributing to the school newspaper, although her overall academic performance was average. However, around early 1941, due to Anna Lower's declining health, Monroe had to move back with the Goddards in Van Nuys. That same year, Monroe started at Van Nuys High School. In 1942, a significant change occurred when Doc Goddard's employer transferred him to West Virginia. Due to California's child protection laws, the Goddards couldn't take Monroe with them, and she was at risk of returning to the orphanage. To avoid this, Monroe married James Dougherty, a 21-year-old factory worker and son of their neighbors, on June 19, 1942, shortly after turning 16. Following her marriage, Monroe left high school and took on the role of a housewife. However, she found little fulfillment in this new life, later expressing that she felt incredibly bored in the marriage. When Dougherty joined the Merchant Marines in 1943 and was stationed on Santa Catalina Island, Monroe relocated there with him. In April 1944, James Dougherty was deployed to the Pacific, where he would stay for the majority of the following 2 years. During his absence, Monroe moved in with her in-laws and secured a position at the Radio Plane Company, a munitions factory in Van Nuys. It was here, towards the end of 1944, that she encountered photographer David Conover, who had been assigned by the U.S. Army Air Force's 1st Motion Picture Unit to take uplifting photos of female workers in factories. Although Monroe's photos from this shoot were not used, the experience marked a turning point. She left her factory job in January 1945 to pursue modeling, working with Conover and his colleagues. Taking a bold step that went against her husband's wishes, Monroe, now on her own, signed a contract with the Blue Book Model Agency in August 1945. This decision set her on a path towards a burgeoning career in modeling, marking the early stages of her transformation into the icon we know today. Upon joining the Blue Book Model Agency, Monroe was advised that her physique was more suited to pin-up modeling than high fashion. Consequently, she began appearing predominantly in advertisements and men's magazines. Seeking to increase her marketability, she transformed her appearance by straightening and dyeing her hair blonde. Emmeline Snively, the owner of the agency, noted Monroe's rapid rise as one of their most dedicated and industrious models. By the early part of 1946, she had already graced the covers of 33 magazines, including well-known publications like Pageant, US Camera, Laugh, and Peak. During her modeling career, Monroe sometimes adopted the pseudonym Jean Norman. Through connections made by Emmeline Snively, Monroe secured a contract with an acting agency in June 1946. Her initial attempt to break into the industry, including an unsuccessful interview at Paramount Pictures, eventually led her to a screen test with Ben Lyon, an executive at 20th Century Fox. Darryl F. Zanuck, the head executive at Fox, was not overly impressed by her screen test, but decided to offer her a standard 6-month contract, partly to prevent her from being signed by their competitor, RKO Pictures. Monroe's contract with Fox began in August 1946, during which time she and Lyon collaboratively chose the stage name Marilyn Monroe. Lyon selected Marilyn, inspired by Broadway star Marilyn Miller, while Monroe was her mother's maiden name. In a personal decision, Monroe divorced James Dougherty in September 1946, as he was opposed to her pursuing a career in acting. During her initial 6 months with Fox, Monroe dedicated herself to honing her skills in acting, singing, and dancing, while also taking the opportunity to observe the filmmaking process closely. Her contract was extended in February 1947, leading to her first roles in the films Dangerous Years and Skudda Hoo, Skudda Hey in 1948. Additionally, the studio placed her in the Actors Laboratory Theater, an acting school known for teaching the techniques of the group theater. Monroe later reflected on this experience as her introduction to serious acting, saying it was what truly captivated her about the craft. Despite her passion and dedication, her instructors at the school viewed her as too shy and insecure for a career in acting, leading Fox to decide against renewing her contract in August 1947. Monroe then returned to modeling and took on various jobs in film studios, including working as a dancing pacer to assist leads in musical productions. Her resolve to succeed as an actress remained steadfast, and she continued her studies at the Actors Lab. She landed a minor role in the play Glamour Preferred at the Bliss Hayden Theater, but the production was short-lived, lasting only a few performances. Eager to expand her network in the industry, Monroe frequently visited producers' offices, formed a connection with gossip columnist Sidney Skolsky, and made it a point to socialize with influential men at studio events, a strategy she had started employing during her time at Fox. In her efforts to advance her career, Monroe also developed a friendship and occasional intimate relationship with Joseph M. Schenck, a Fox executive. Leveraging this connection, Schenck recommended her to his friend Harry Cohn, the head executive of Columbia Pictures, who then signed Monroe in March 1948. While at Columbia Pictures, Monroe underwent a significant transformation, with her appearance being styled to resemble Rita Hayworth, including bleaching her hair to a platinum blonde. She started working with Natasha Lytess, the studio's head drama coach, who would become an influential mentor to her until 1955. Monroe's tenure at Columbia resulted in a single film, the modestly budgeted musical Ladies of the Chorus, where she played her first leading role as a chorus girl who catches the eye of a wealthy suitor. Additionally, she screen tested for the lead in Born Yesterday. But despite these efforts, her contract with Columbia was not renewed in September 1948. Ladies of the Chorus was released the next month, but failed to make a significant impact. After her contract with Columbia came to an end, Monroe pivoted back to modeling. She worked on a commercial for Pabst Beer and posed for artistic nude photographs taken by Tom Kelly, which were intended for John Baumgarth calendars. During these sessions, she used the pseudonym Mona Monroe. This was not her first foray into such work. She had previously posed topless or in bikinis for other artists, including Earl Moran, and was comfortable with nudity. Around this time, shortly after her departure from Columbia, Monroe encountered Johnny Hyde, vice president of the William Morris Agency. She quickly became both his protege and mistress, marking the beginning of another influential chapter in her career. With Johnny Hyde's guidance, Monroe secured minor parts in a series of films, including roles in 2 critically lauded movies, Joseph Mankiewicz's All About Eve and John Huston's noir classic The Asphalt Jungle, which were both released in 1950. Though her appearance in The Asphalt Jungle was brief, it was impactful enough to earn her a mention in photoplay. Biographer Donald Spoto remarked that this role marked her transition from a movie model to a serious actress. In December 1950, Hyde successfully negotiated a 7-year contract with 20th Century Fox for Monroe, although the contract included a clause that allowed Fox to decide annually whether to continue it. Tragically, Hyde passed away from a heart attack shortly after, a loss that deeply affected Monroe. The following year, 1951, saw Monroe in supporting roles in 3 Fox comedies: As Young as You Feel, Love Nest, and Let's Make It Legal. According to Spoto, these roles predominantly cast her as a glamorous figure, yet she began to receive recognition for her acting. Monroe's appeal to audiences was rapidly growing during this period. She was receiving several thousand fan letters every week, and was even named Miss Cheesecake of 1951 by the Army newspaper Stars and Stripes, a title reflecting her popularity among soldiers during the Korean War. In February 1952, her rising star was further acknowledged when the Hollywood Foreign Press Association honored her as the best young box office personality. Meanwhile, Monroe's personal life was equally dynamic. She had a brief relationship with director Elia Kazan and casually dated a few other prominent figures, including director Nicholas Ray and actors Yul Brynner and Peter Lawford. Early in 1952, she began a highly publicized romance with Joe DiMaggio, a retired New York Yankees baseball star and one of the most celebrated sports figures of the time. In March 1952, Marilyn Monroe became embroiled in a scandal when it came to light that she had posed for a nude calendar back in 1949. The studio, aware of the photos and the growing rumors identifying her as the model, strategized with Monroe to address the situation head-on. They decided the best course of action was for Monroe to openly acknowledge the photos while emphasizing her financial struggles at the time. This approach not only garnered public sympathy, but also heightened interest in her films, where she was now receiving top billing. In the midst of this controversy, Monroe graced the cover of Life magazine, labeled as the talk of Hollywood. Gossip columnist Hedda Hopper dubbed her the Cheesecake Queen turned box office smash. Capitalizing on this surge in public curiosity, 3 of Monroe's films, Clash by Night, Don't Bother to Knock, and We're Not Married, were released shortly thereafter. In 1952, Monroe further cemented her status as a burgeoning sex symbol through various publicity maneuvers. Notably, she stirred attention by wearing a revealing dress as the Grand Marshal at the Miss America pageant parade, and made headlines with a candid remark to gossip columnist Earl Wilson about her choice to often go without underwear. By the end of 1952, Monroe's growing fame and allure led gossip columnist Floribel Muir to dub her the It Girl of the Year, a testament to her rising prominence in Hollywood and popular culture. During this phase of her career, Monroe started to develop a reputation for being challenging to work with, an issue that would escalate as she became more famous. She frequently arrived late to sets, or sometimes didn't show up at all, struggled to remember her lines, and often insisted on multiple retakes until she felt satisfied with her performance. Additionally, her reliance on acting coaches, initially Natasha Lytess and later Paula Strasberg, caused frustration among directors. Monroe's on-set difficulties have been linked to a mix of perfectionism, low self-esteem, and stage fright. She was known to be uncomfortable with the lack of control she had in movie productions, a stark contrast to her experiences in photo shoots. In the latter, she had greater influence over her performance and the flexibility to be more spontaneous without the constraints of a script. This difference highlights the complex nature of her relationship with her craft and the entertainment industry. During this time, Marilyn started experiencing anxiety and chronic insomnia, and to cope with these issues, she turned to barbiturates, amphetamines, and alcohol. Unfortunately, this approach further aggravated her difficulties. It's important to note that while she began using these substances during this period, her struggle with severe addiction did not fully manifest until around 1956. In 1953, Monroe starred in 3 films, solidifying her status as a prominent sex symbol and one of Hollywood's most profitable stars. The first release was the Technicolor film noir, Niagara, where she portrayed a femme fatale plotting to kill her husband, played by Joseph Cotten. Around this time, Monroe, with the help of her makeup artist Alan Whitey Snyder, perfected her iconic makeup style characterized by dark arched eyebrows, pale skin, shiny red lips, and a distinctive beauty mark. The movie stands out as one of Monroe's most overtly sexual films. It included provocative scenes where Monroe's character was clad only in a sheet or towel, which was quite bold for that era. One of the film's most memorable moments is a 30-second shot from behind, capturing Monroe walking with a pronounced sway in her hips. This particular scene became a central element in the film's promotional campaign, further enhancing Monroe's image as a sex symbol. As her fame grew, she continued to draw attention with her wardrobe choices, notably at the Photo Play Awards in January 1953, where she was honored with the Fastest Rising Star Award. She made a striking appearance in a pleated, waist-tight, deep décolleté gold dress, designed by William Travilla for Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Though the dress was barely featured in the film, it became an iconic look. Such bold fashion statements led to public criticism from some, including veteran actress Joan Crawford, who openly condemned this style of self-presentation as inappropriate for an actress and a lady. While Niagara established Monroe as a sex symbol and defined her iconic look, her second film of 1953, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, further solidified her image as the quintessential dumb blonde. This satirical musical comedy, adapted from Anita Luce's novel and its Broadway adaptation, starred Monroe and Jane Russell as two gold-digging showgirls. Originally, the role played by Monroe was intended for Betty Grable, who had been 20th Century Fox's top blonde bombshell during the 1940s. However, Monroe was quickly surpassing Grable, appealing to both male and female audiences. As a promotional activity for the film, Monroe and Russell famously left their hand and footprints in wet concrete outside Grauman's Chinese Theater in June. Following its release, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes turned out to be one of the year's major box office hits. Critics like Bosley Crowther of the New York Times and William Brogdon of Variety praised Monroe's performance. Her rendition of "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend" was particularly highlighted, with Brogdon remarking on her ability to add allure to a song and enhance the visual appeal of a scene with her presence. In September, Monroe ventured into television with her debut on The Jack Benny Show, where she appeared as Jack's dream woman in the episode titled Honolulu Trip. Later that year, she starred alongside Betty Grable and Lauren Bacall in her third film of 1953, How to Marry a Millionaire, which was released in November. In this movie, Monroe played a naive model who, along with her friends, devises a plan to marry wealthy men, echoing the successful theme of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. How to Marry a Millionaire was notable for being one of the first films released in CinemaScope, a widescreen format introduced by Fox to lure audiences back to movie theaters, at a time when television was starting to impact the film industry. Although the film received mixed critical reviews, it became the biggest box office hit of Monroe's career up to that point. In December 1953, Monroe's status as a leading sex symbol was further cemented when Hugh Hefner featured her on the cover, and as the centerfold in the inaugural issue of Playboy magazine. It's important to note, however, that Monroe did not give her consent for this publication. The cover showcased a photo of her taken during the Miss America pageant parade in 1952, while the centerfold highlighted one of her nude photographs from 1949. By this time, Monroe had risen to become one of 20th Century Fox's most prominent stars. However, her contract, unchanged since 1950, meant she was earning significantly less than other actors of her caliber, and had little say in choosing her film projects. Her efforts to take on roles beyond the pin-up stereotype were consistently blocked by the studio's head executive, Darryl F. Zanuck. Zanuck, who personally disliked Monroe, believed that she wouldn't generate as much revenue in non-typical roles for her. Under the direction of Spyros Skouras, the studio's owner, Zanuck had also shifted Fox's focus exclusively towards more profitable, entertainment-focused films, halting the production of serious films. In January 1954, this conflict came to a head when Monroe was suspended by Zanuck for refusing to start filming another musical comedy, The Girl in Pink Tights. The suspension of Monroe from 20th Century Fox became a major news story, prompting her to take immediate steps to mitigate any adverse publicity. On January 14th, she married Joe DiMaggio at San Francisco City Hall, a move that captured public attention. The newlyweds embarked on a road trip, first stopping in Paso Robles and then in San Luis Obispo, before spending their honeymoon in a mountain lodge outside Idlewild, California, owned by Monroe's lawyer, Lloyd Wright. Just 15 days after their wedding, on January 29, 1954, the couple flew to Japan. This trip was a blend of a honeymoon and DiMaggio's commitment to assist his former San Francisco Seals coach, Lefty O'Doul, in training Japanese baseball teams. While in Tokyo, Monroe, accompanied by John O'Doul, Lefty's wife, made a detour to Korea. There, she performed in a USO show, entertaining over 60,000 U.S. Marines by singing songs from her films over 4 days. Upon her return to the United States, Monroe was greeted with the honor of Photoplay's Most Popular Female Star Award. In March, she reached a settlement with Fox, which included a new contract, a $100,000 bonus, and a starring role in the film adaptation of the Broadway hit The 7-Year Itch. In April 1954, River of No Return, a Western directed by Otto Preminger and the last film Monroe completed before her suspension, was released. Monroe herself was critical of the movie, dismissing it as a low-grade cowboy film where the acting was overshadowed by the scenery and the cinemascope process. Despite her views, the film found success with audiences. Following her suspension, Monroe returned to the set for There's No Business Like Show Business, a musical she was notably averse to but agreed to star in as part of her compromise with the studio for backing out of The Girl in Pink Tights. Released towards the end of 1954, the film didn't fare well, with many critics finding Monroe's performance in it to be overdone and vulgar. In September 1954, Monroe started working on Billy Wilder's comedy, The 7-Year Itch. In this film, she played opposite Tom Ewell, portraying a woman who captivates her married neighbor and becomes the focus of his sexual fantasies. While the film was primarily shot in Hollywood, the studio orchestrated a publicity stunt by filming a famous scene on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. This scene, where Monroe stands over a subway grate with the draft causing her white dress to billow up, was an instant sensation. The filming attracted a crowd of nearly 2,000 onlookers and lasted several hours. This iconic subway grate scene went on to become one of Monroe's most memorable moments. Following its release in June 1955, The 7-Year Itch emerged as one of the year's major box office hits. The publicity stunt for The 7-Year Itch, which captured global media attention, also turned out to be the tipping point for Monroe's marriage to Joe DiMaggio, who was deeply angered by the spectacle. Their marriage, strained from the beginning due to DiMaggio's jealousy, controlling behavior, and physical abusiveness, could not withstand the growing tensions. Following Monroe's return from New York City to Hollywood in October 1954, she filed for divorce, bringing an end to their marriage of just 9 months. In November 1954, Monroe took a significant step by leaving Hollywood and heading to the East Coast. There, she teamed up with photographer Milton Green to establish their own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, MMP. This move has been recognized as a pivotal factor in the eventual breakdown of the traditional studio system. Monroe expressed her dissatisfaction with the repetitive sexualized roles she was being offered and declared her independence from Fox, claiming they had breached their contract by not paying her the promised bonus. This initiated a contentious legal dispute with Fox that began in January 1955 and lasted for a year. During this period, Monroe faced considerable mockery from the press. She was even parodied in the 1955 Broadway play, Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter? In this production, Jane Mansfield, bearing a resemblance to Monroe, portrayed a not-so-bright actress who sets up her own production company, a clear nod to Monroe's recent actions. Following the establishment of Marilyn Monroe Productions, MMP, Monroe relocated to Manhattan, dedicating 1955 to honing her acting skills. She engaged in classes with Constance Collier and participated in method acting workshops at the Actors Studio, led by Lee Strasberg. Monroe developed a close bond with Strasberg and his wife, Paula, opting for private lessons at their home to accommodate her shyness. Over time, she became like a member of their family. Monroe parted ways with her former acting coach, Natasha Leites, and instead began working under the guidance of Paula Strasberg. The Strasbergs would continue to play a significant role in her career development. Additionally, Monroe embarked on psychoanalysis, aligning with Strasberg's belief that an actor must explore and utilize their emotional experiences in their performances. Even as her divorce proceedings with Joe DiMaggio were underway, Monroe maintained a relationship with him. During this period, she also dated notable figures like actor Marlon Brando and playwright Arthur Miller. Monroe had first met Miller through Elia Kazan in the early 1950s. Her romance with Arthur Miller intensified around October 1955, coinciding with the finalization of Monroe's divorce from DiMaggio and Miller's separation from his wife. despite pressure from the studio to end the relationship, especially given Miller's scrutiny by the FBI for suspected communist affiliations and his subpoena by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Monroe stood firm in her decision to continue seeing him. Her involvement with Miller led the FBI to start keeping a file on her. As the year drew to a close, Monroe and Fox reached an agreement on a new 7-year contract. This decision came as Marilyn Monroe Productions realized it couldn't independently finance films, and Fox was keen to bring Marilyn back into their fold. Under the terms of this new contract, Fox agreed to pay Monroe $400,000 for 4 films. Additionally, Monroe was granted significant creative control, including the ability to select her own projects, directors, and cinematographers. The deal also allowed her the flexibility to work on one MMP film for every project she completed with Fox. She kicked off 1956 with the announcement of her triumph in the negotiations with 20th Century Fox. In a significant move, she also legally changed her name to Marilyn Monroe. The media responded positively to her stance against the studio. Time magazine lauded her as a shrewd businesswoman, and Look magazine anticipated that her victory would be remembered as an example of the individual against the herd for years to come. However, her relationship with Arthur Miller attracted some criticism. Notably, commentator Walter Winchell made a disparaging remark, suggesting that Monroe, America's best-known blonde moving picture star, had become the darling of the left-wing intelligentsia. This comment highlighted the mixed public and media reactions to Monroe's personal and professional choices during this period. In March, Monroe embarked on the production of Bus Stop, her first project under the new contract with 20th Century Fox. In this drama, she portrayed Cherie, a saloon singer whose aspirations for fame become entangled with the affections of a naive cowboy. For this character, Monroe adopted an Ozark accent and opted for costumes and makeup that dialed back the glamour she was known for. She intentionally delivered average singing and dancing performances to align with the character's profile. Broadway director Joshua Logan took the helm of the film, despite his initial reservations about Monroe's acting skills and awareness of her reputation for being challenging to work with. The shoot took place in Idaho and Arizona, where Monroe, holding the reins as the head of Marilyn Monroe Productions, had a significant say in cinematography decisions. She also managed the set dynamics, with Logan accommodating her habitual tardiness and perfectionist tendencies. Her performance and work ethic during the filming of Bus Stop notably altered Logan's perception of her. He later praised her unique ability to seamlessly blend elements of comedy and tragedy, drawing a parallel between her and the legendary Charlie Chaplin. On June 29, 1956, Monroe and Arthur Miller tied the knot at the Westchester County Court in White Plains, New York. Their wedding was followed by a Jewish ceremony 2 days later at the residence of Kay Brown, Miller's literary agent, located in Wacabuck, New York. As part of this union, Monroe converted to Judaism, a decision that prompted Egypt to ban all her films. The marriage of Monroe, known as a quintessential sex symbol, to Miller, perceived as an intellectual, was viewed as an unlikely pairing by the media. This sentiment was encapsulated in a headline by Variety, which dubbed the marriage as "Egghead Weds Hourglass," reflecting the perceived disparity between their public images. During the production of The Prince and the Showgirl, Monroe faced several challenges. Her reliance on prescription drugs intensified, and she sadly suffered a miscarriage. Tensions also arose between Monroe and Milton Green regarding the management of Marilyn Monroe Productions. Despite these issues, the filming wrapped up on schedule by the end of 1956. When released in June 1957, The Prince and the Showgirl received mixed reviews and did not resonate well with American audiences. However, the film found a more favorable reception in Europe. Monroe was honored with the Italian David di Donatello and the French Crystal Star Awards, and she also received a BAFTA nomination for her performance. Upon her return from England, Monroe took an 18-month break to focus on her personal life with Arthur Miller. They divided their time among New York City, Connecticut, and Long Island. During this period, Monroe experienced significant health challenges, including an ectopic pregnancy in mid-1957 and a miscarriage the following year, likely related to her endometriosis. Additionally, she was briefly hospitalized for a barbiturate overdose. Amidst these personal struggles, disagreements with Milton Green about the direction of Marilyn Monroe Productions, MMP, persisted. Unable to reconcile their differences, Monroe eventually bought out Green's share in the company. In July 1958, Monroe made her return to Hollywood, starring alongside Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis in Billy Wilder's comedic exploration of gender roles, Some Like It Hot. Although she viewed her character, Sugar Cane, as yet another dumb blonde role, she was persuaded to take it by Arthur Miller's encouragement and the attractive offer of receiving 10% of the film's profits in addition to her usual salary. The production of Some Like It Hot has become infamous for its challenges. Monroe frequently called for numerous retakes, struggled with her lines, and often did not follow direction. Tony Curtis famously compared the experience of kissing her to kissing Hitler due to the numerous retakes required. Monroe herself described the production as akin to a sinking ship and made a cryptic comment about her co-stars and director, implying a lack of concern about her own performance. Despite the challenging production process, director Billy Wilder ultimately praised Monroe's performance in Some Like It Hot, remarking, "Anyone can remember lines, but it takes a real artist to come on the set and not know her lines and yet give the performance she did." Upon its release in March 1959, the film was both a critical and commercial triumph. Monroe's portrayal in the movie won her a Golden Globe for Best Actress. Variety lauded her as a comedienne, highlighting her unique blend of sex appeal and comedic timing as unbeatable. Some Like It Hot has been recognized as one of the greatest films in cinematic history, earning high rankings in polls conducted by the BBC, the American Film Institute, and Sight and Sound. Following Some Like It Hot, Monroe took a break until late 1959, when she began work on the musical comedy Let's Make Love. She selected George Cukor as the director, and had Arthur Miller revise portions of the script, which she found lacking. Monroe's involvement in the film was primarily due to her obligations under her contract with Fox. The production faced delays due to her frequent absences. During the filming, Monroe's affair with her co-star, Yves Montand, became a hot topic in the press, and was even leveraged in the film's marketing. Despite these efforts, Let's Make Love was not successful upon its release in September 1960. Critics like Bosley Crowther commented on Monroe's seemingly disheveled appearance and lack of her usual vibrancy, while Hedda Hopper criticized the film as Monroe's most vulgar. Her final completed film was John Huston's The Misfits, a project for which Arthur Miller penned the screenplay specifically to offer her a substantial dramatic role. In the film, she portrayed a woman navigating life after divorce, forming bonds with her landlady in Reno, and 3 aging cowboys, characters brought to life by Clark Gable, Eli Wallach, and Montgomery Clift. The production, which took place in Reno and the Nevada desert near Carson City from July to November 1960, encountered challenges. During this time, Monroe's marriage with Miller was unraveling, and Miller started a new relationship with Inge Morath, a photographer from Magnum. This personal upheaval added to the complexity of the film's production. Monroe had reservations about The Misfits, particularly displeased with how Miller, the screenwriter, had drawn inspiration from her own life for her character, and she felt that her role paled in comparison to those of her male counterparts. Additionally, she found it challenging to cope with Miller's tendency to rewrite scenes just before they were due to be filmed. Her health was deteriorating at this time. She suffered from gallstones, and her dependency on drugs had escalated to the point where her makeup often had to be applied while she was asleep, under the influence of barbiturates. In August, the production was temporarily halted to allow Monroe to undergo a week-long hospital detox. After the completion of The Misfits, Monroe and Miller went their separate ways, culminating in Monroe securing a divorce in Mexico in January 1961. When the film was released the following month, it did not perform well at the box office. Critical reception at the time was mixed, with Variety critiquing the choppy character development, and Bosley Crowther describing Monroe's performance as completely blank and unfathomable, commenting on its detrimental impact on the film's structure. The first half of 1961 saw Monroe largely focused on dealing with various health issues. She underwent a cholecystectomy and surgery to address her endometriosis, and also spent a month in the hospital for depression. During this challenging period, Monroe found support in Joe DiMaggio, rekindling their friendship, and she also dated Frank Sinatra, a friend of DiMaggio's, for a few months. Additionally, Monroe made a significant life change by moving back to California permanently in 1961. She bought a house at 12305 Fifth Helena Drive in Brentwood, Los Angeles. In the spring of 1962, Monroe made her way back into the limelight, she was honored with a World Film Favorite Golden Globe Award and started working on a new project for Fox titled Something's Got to Give, a remake of the 1940 film My Favorite Wife. This film, co-produced by Marilyn Monroe Productions, was directed by George Cukor and starred Dean Martin and Sid Charisse alongside Monroe. However, just days before the commencement of filming, Monroe was struck with sinusitis. Despite doctors recommending a delay in the production, Fox proceeded with the scheduled start at the end of April. Over the next 6 weeks, Monroe was too ill to work. But despite verification from several doctors, Fox Studios publicly insinuated that she was exaggerating her illness. Amidst this, Monroe made a notable public appearance on May 19th to perform Happy Birthday, Mr. President at President John F. Kennedy's early birthday event at Madison Square Garden in New York. Her performance garnered significant attention, partly due to her outfit, a beige, form-fitting dress adorned with rhinestones, which gave the illusion of her being nude. Monroe's decision to travel to New York for this event further strained her relationship with Fox executives, who had expressed their wish for her to cancel the appearance due to the ongoing issues with the production of Something's Got to Give. Monroe's next involvement in Something's Got to Give included filming a scene where she swam naked in a swimming pool. In a strategic move to create advance buzz, the press was invited to photograph this scene, and the images were subsequently featured in Life magazine. This marked a first in Hollywood, with a major star posing nude at the peak of their career. However, Monroe soon took another sick leave, lasting several days. During this time, Fox, already grappling with escalating costs for the production of Cleopatra, decided it couldn't risk further delays. Consequently, on June 7th, the studio terminated Monroe's contract and filed a lawsuit against her for $750,000 in damages. Lee Remick was brought in as her replacement, but co-star Dean Martin stood by Monroe, insisting he would only work with her. This led Fox to also sue Martin and ultimately halt production on the film. In the aftermath, Fox held Monroe responsible for the film's failure and embarked on a campaign to tarnish her public image, going so far as to suggest that she was mentally unstable. Fox, realizing the potential mistake in dismissing Monroe, re-entered negotiations with her later in June. By the summer's end, they had reached a settlement on a new contract. This agreement not only revived Something's Got to Give, but also secured Monroe a leading role in the black comedy What a Way to Go. Additionally, Monroe was planning to star in a biopic about Jean Harlow. In an effort to rehabilitate her public image, Monroe embarked on a series of publicity activities. This included giving interviews to Life and Cosmopolitan magazines and participating in her first photo shoot for Vogue. For Vogue, she collaborated with photographer Bert Stern over 3 days on 2 different series of photos, one a standard fashion editorial and the other featuring her in nude poses. These photos were later published posthumously under the title, The Last Sitting. In her final months, Monroe resided at her home located at 12305 5th Helena Drive in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles. On the night of August 4, 1962, her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, was staying at the house. Early in the morning on August 5th, around 3 a.m., Murray woke up feeling that something was amiss. She noticed light coming from under Monroe's bedroom door, but received no response when she called out and found the door locked. Concerned, Murray phoned Monroe's psychiatrist, Ralph Greenson, who arrived soon after. Unable to open the door, Greenson broke into the bedroom through a window and discovered Monroe deceased in her bed. Monroe's physician, Hyman Engelberg, arrived at approximately 3:50 a.m. and officially declared her death. The Los Angeles Police Department was then informed of the situation at 4:25 a.m. Monroe's death occurred sometime between 8:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. on August 4th. The toxicology report identified acute barbiturate poisoning as the cause. Her blood contained 8 mg% chloral hydrate and 4.5 mg% pentobarbital, nembutal, with her liver showing 13 mg% pentobarbital concentration. Empty medication bottles were found beside her bed. The theory of an accidental overdose was dismissed, as the levels of the substances found in her system were significantly higher than the lethal limit. The investigation into Monroe's death by the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office was supported by the expertise of the Los Angeles Suicide Prevention Team, specialists in understanding suicide. According to statements from Monroe's physicians, she had a history of experiencing intense fears, frequent bouts of depression, and sudden, unpredictable mood swings. They also noted that she had previously experienced several overdoses, some of which might have been intentional. Given these factors, and the absence of any signs of foul play, Deputy Coroner Thomas Noguchi concluded that her death was most likely a suicide. Almost as soon as news of Monroe's death broke, speculations about possible foul play began to circulate, and these rumors have continued to persist over the years. In 1982, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office reviewed the case to determine if there was sufficient evidence to justify a criminal investigation into her death. However, they did not find any reliable evidence to support the theory that Monroe was murdered. Despite this, rumors and various theories continue to surface, suggesting that there was more to Monroe's death than initially believed. The conjecture that the CIA played a role in Marilyn Monroe's death first emerged in the late 1960s. It was loosely based on rumors about Monroe's alleged romantic ties with Robert Kennedy, who was the U.S. Attorney General at the time, and with President John F. Kennedy, dating back to his days as a senator. One version of this theory suggests that the CIA orchestrated Monroe's death because the Kennedy brothers might have shared sensitive state secrets with her, potentially posing a national security risk. Another variation implies that the CIA targeted her as a means of retaliating against the Kennedys for the Bay of Pigs debacle. This theory gained some attention following the release of Norman Mailer's 1973 biography of Monroe, in which he speculated that either the FBI or CIA could have been involved in her death to exert pressure on the Kennedys. However, Mailer later publicly withdrew this claim during an appearance on 60 Minutes that same year. To date, there is no concrete evidence to substantiate any involvement of a government agency in Monroe's death. The notion that the Mafia was involved in Marilyn Monroe's death largely stems from Milo Spiriglio's 1982 book, Marilyn Monroe: Murder Cover-Up. Spiriglio, a private investigator, implicated Jimmy Hoffa and mob boss Sam Giancana in the alleged murder. This theory was further elaborated in the 1992 book Double Cross, authored by Giancana's brother and godson. They claimed that the CIA contracted Giancana to assassinate Monroe due to her connections with Robert Kennedy. However, there is no substantiated evidence to back up any claims of Mafia involvement in Monroe's death. The long-standing rumors of Marilyn Monroe's affair with John F. Kennedy are largely fueled by her iconic Happy Birthday performance at his birthday celebration in May 1962. While some speculate that there might have been a brief fling rather than a long-term affair, they often cite the lack of substantial evidence, such as the fact that Monroe and JFK were only photographed together once. In his 1993 biography of Monroe, Donald Spoto addresses these rumors, stating that no credible biographer can assert that there was an affair between Monroe and the Kennedys. According to Spoto, Monroe and the president met only 4 times from October 1961 to August 1962. During one of these encounters, they shared a room, after which Monroe reportedly disclosed this intimate interaction to her relatives, emphasizing that it did not lead to a sustained relationship. The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe explores the possibility that the relationship between Monroe and John F. Kennedy extended beyond a casual encounter. It presents previously undisclosed recordings that hint at an affair starting well before Kennedy's presidency. The documentary also suggests that actor Peter Lawford, married to Kennedy's sister Patricia, played a role in facilitating their raunchy meetings. The documentary also presents a theory that it was not John F. Kennedy, but his younger brother, Robert Kennedy, who truly captivated Monroe's heart. The documentary suggests that she was involved with both Kennedy brothers simultaneously. It also proposes that Monroe's deep depression, which culminated in her overdose, was triggered by Robert Kennedy's decision to end their relationship. Similar to the conspiracy theory about CIA involvement in Monroe's death, the speculation that either John or Robert Kennedy, or both, orchestrated her death is rooted in the belief that Monroe had communist sympathies. These suspicions were partly fueled by her marriage to Arthur Miller, who was suspected of having communist ties. According to one version of this theory, Robert Kennedy had Monroe killed because she was privy to too many state secrets and posed a threat of exposing them. Another variation suggests that Kennedy orchestrated her death to prevent the disclosure of their affair, which could have jeopardized his career. In The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe, the tapes from Summers add depth to his theory, initially proposed in his book. Summers suggests that while Robert Kennedy might not have been directly involved in Monroe's death, he played a role in obscuring certain aspects of her overdose. According to Summers' research, Robert Kennedy was present at Monroe's residence on the day of her death. He also refers to claims from a reporter at the time who allegedly uncovered evidence of Kennedy's visit but was dissuaded by Kennedy's associates from publishing the story. However, it's important to note that much of this information comes from second- or third-hand accounts, as many of the tapes feature individuals relaying stories they heard from others. Summers' tapes, as featured in his investigations, hint at possible FBI involvement in concealing crucial details about the night of Monroe's death. This is based on his interview with Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray. The tapes also reveal inconsistencies between the official narrative released to the press about Monroe's death and various private accounts, such as those from the wife of Monroe's press agent and an ambulance driver who was called to Monroe's house. Again, it's important to note that these accounts are from individuals not directly present at the scene, offering their perspectives without solid evidence to back them up. Summers also offers an explanation for the scarcity of photographs featuring Monroe with the Kennedys. He suggests that men claiming to be FBI agents confiscated additional photos from at least one agency following Monroe's death. Moreover, an interview with a former FBI agent in Summers' research alleges that records of Monroe's affairs with the Kennedys were removed by the FBI, possibly under orders from then-Director J. Edgar Hoover or the Kennedys themselves. Marilyn Monroe's funeral took place at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery on August 8th and was a private affair, attended solely by her closest friends and associates. The arrangements for the service were made by Joe DiMaggio, her half-sister Bernice Baker Miracle, and her business manager, Inez Melson. Despite the private nature of the service, hundreds of fans and onlookers gathered on the streets surrounding the cemetery. Monroe was subsequently laid to rest in crypt number 24 at the Corridor of Memories. Marilyn Monroe's impact on Hollywood and her fans was profound. Her passing highlighted the pressures of fame and the often hidden struggles of those in the limelight. Her legacy, however, transcends her tragic end. Today, Marilyn remains a symbol of timeless elegance, her image and persona continuing to inspire and captivate. She is celebrated for her talent, her charisma, and her groundbreaking role in redefining the image of a Hollywood starlet. Her vulnerability and strength, her triumphs and challenges, resonate with new generations, making her a symbol of both glamour and human endearment. Despite the official ruling of probable suicide, the air of mystery has never fully cleared, contributing to the enduring intrigue of Marilyn's story. She was more than just a film star. She was a phenomenon that left her mark on the cultural landscape. Her life and death remind us of the human behind the icon, a woman who faced her challenges with grace and resilience. As we remember Marilyn, let us celebrate her contributions to film and culture, her spirit of perseverance, and the light she brought to the world. Her legacy continues to shine, as vibrant and compelling as the star herself. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of one of Hollywood's most enduring legends. If Marilyn's story has moved you, inspired you, or sparked your curiosity, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of those who have shaped our culture. Until next time, keep the legacy alive by remembering the woman who showed us that beneath the glitz and glamour, we all share the same human experiences, dreams, and challenges. This is Decoding Marilyn, signing off.